Alright everybody, we're here to talk about what exactly makes the Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain, such an ingenious storyline. I think this should go without saying that this video may contain some spoilers and possibly some major spoilers. I am going to try to avoid going into detail about what exactly happened in the story and go off the assumption that you have completed the game and that you know what happens in the very end of the game. So if you haven't completed the game and you don't know what happens, I would suggest maybe waiting to watch this video until after you have done that. That being said, let's get into exactly why people are so upset about this story and what actually makes it so ingenious. So, step one. First thing that we're going to talk about is what most movie and game companies would be doing in this situation, because the thing that most people don't understand about this is that the Metal Gear Solid 5 is not really that different in comparison to a lot of other games and movies. You just don't know it. What makes people think it's different is that they look at it and they say, this game is unfinished. There's a story plot here, a subplot here, this wasn't finished, and these missions are just replay missions, and they have all sorts of valid points that would show that this game is a tad bit unfinished. But let's go over a few things here real quick in case you don't know, and I would assume that if you've ever worked in any sort of movie industry or video game industry or understand what happens in those situations, you'll have a pretty good idea about what I'm talking about here. Most stories, whether it's a movie or a game, actually have a lot more to it than what we see in the final product. Because what happens is the creators will go, okay, this is my main story plot, this is what this is my dream, this is what I want to envision, this is the whole deal. This is the main characters, this is how it's going to end up, and you get kind of the whole general idea, and then they go off and they make the movie, movie or game, and then they make adjustments along the way. What often happens is there's a whole lot of extra content, different scenes and whatnot, that they weren't able to finish in time due to budgets, or maybe it just didn't really fit. Whatever the reason, there is always stuff that is cut from video games, especially AAA titles and big movies. So you need to keep that in mind. There is always things cut from them. We just don't ever hear about it. We don't see it. Maybe 5-10 years down the line during a collector's edition or a re-release, there will be a special features disc that'll say, oh yeah, we were going to do this, or Luke Skywalker was actually going to be da-da-da-da-da. And you find out that the story that we know today, let's use Star Wars for an example, would have been completely different if they had followed exactly what George Lucas had intended for the original film. But they changed a lot of it, and they shot a few scenes that never made it into the movie, and then years later George Lucas put them back into the movie. We've seen it, they're deleted scenes. Video games have the exact same thing. They have content that is cut for, most often, I think, budget and time restraints. They just don't have time to finish it, and from time to time there's probably content that gets cut because, the developers just say, hey guys, I don't think this really fits with the rest of the game, so let's chop it. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's go into specifically about the Metal Gear Solid The Phantom Pain. Now, if this were under any normal circumstances, if this was just going to be a regular game release and they were like, okay, let's release the game, I think what they would have done is cut out all the content that people are complaining about being unfinished. So Eli and Psycho Mantis would have never stolen the Metal Gear Philanthropist. It's just they would have cut it out and it wouldn't have even been that difficult. Easily the game could have came up to his budget deadline and Konami's like, hey guys, the game's releasing. You need to finish it. I don't care what's going on. I don't care how many things that you want to add into the game. You need to finish it now. What they could have done is just cut that whole section out completely. That solves the issue with episode 51, which they would have never needed to put on the collector's edition. Nobody ever had to know that that was even a possible story. Philanthropist would have been destroyed at the end of mission 30. Done deal. It's all over. They could have also not put in the missions where you replay some of the levels. They could have literally taken out every single bit of content that left us feeling that the game was unfinished. Battle Gear, for example. They didn't need to have Battle Gear in there at all. They could have taken out all of the cutscenes. They could have taken out everything to do with it, and it would not have impacted the main storyline one bit. They could have even just put it in as a development item that you can use on deployments so that you never are under the expectation that, oh, this is going to be something I'm going to drive. This is going to be sweet. You're just like, oh, okay, this is a vehicle that my combat guys can use, but I can't use it. It says it right there, can't use it. That would have been one thing, They should have cut it all completely. And then for Chapter 2, instead of having it Chapter 2, it should have just been additional missions that you could unlock, maybe by doing side ops, basically how it is now. What they end up having is you end up completing X amount of side ops, which unlock special side ops, just like they do in the game. You unlock those, and then you're able to kind of get extra endings. You're able to get the ending with Huey. You're able to get Quiet's ending. You're able to get the main big true ending. You know, maybe say you finish all 150 side ops. You unlock that last mission. That way you don't have any repeat missions. You don't have any Chapter 2. You don't have a preview of what's to come in Chapter 2. It's just like, okay, I beat the game, but now there's all these cool little endings at the end. Now it feels like something extra. The game goes from feeling unfinished to feeling like they're giving you extra stuff. But now here's the question. Why didn't they do that? Now, some people will argue, oh, the game would have felt unfinished. And I would say that's a total load of crap. If you've ever played a Metal Gear game before, they run between 20, 40 hours, maybe, if you're pushing it. They're not long games. They feel like they're long games because they have really long cutscenes, but in reality, they're not long. And in this game does have several hours of cutscenes. It has several hours of cassette tapes, which are basically equivalent to codecs. There's a ton of story here. There's a ton of lore. There's a ton of Easter eggs. All that stuff's there, but it's so easily overlooked because of the things that were left as loose ends in the game. So now we have to ask ourselves, why did they do that? Why did they bother to tease us with this additional content that wasn't able to be finished? Why wouldn't they just cover it up like every other developer out there would do? Any developer in their right mind would say, okay, we need to hide this stuff from our gamers, from our, our consumer, because they're going to freak out if they find out that there is missing content in the game, right? Here is my take on it. This is my thoughts, and I think this is a very, very accurate portrayal of what happened. Unless there's some secret thing going on between Kojima and Konami that none of us know about, and they're planning to, pull a 180 in a year or two. But assuming that everything that we've heard is true, this is my take on the entire situation. Ground Zeroes was initially supposed to come with the Phantom Pain. So keep that in mind. The whole Ground Zeroes aspect was going to be a part of the game, making the game even longer, even with more story. Why was it released separately? According to Kojima and Konami, it's because the main game wasn't ready and they wanted to show it off on the next-gen console, blah, blah, blah. Basically a whole bunch of BS that I don't really buy for a second. What I believe happened is Konami is coming down hard, which we know they do. For all reports, Konami comes down hard on their employees. They are really rough when it comes to AAA games. So this is the way I see it. They came down hard. They say, Kojima, listen, this game needs to come out. You've been talking about it for years. People are excited. We want to make the money. The budget's going to start running dry. So you need to finish the game. And Kojima's thinking, this could be my last Metal Gear game, just like he does for everyone. But this time it feels real. He really feels like this is the last Metal Gear Solid game that Kojima is ever going to make. So in his mind, he's thinking, how can I get everything I want to get out to the players, to the consumers, with being constrained by time and budget that Konami has. And, let's be reasonable here. Companies do have to set a budget and a time limit. I mean, in this aspect, Konami really wasn't in the wrong saying, hey guys, hey, we need this game to be done. I don't care if there's going to be FOB multiplayer, Metal Gear Online multiplayer. I don't care if there's 150 hours of gameplay. Like, the game has plenty of gameplay. The game has plenty of story. It has plenty of elements to be released fully. So Konami's trying to get this game out the door, and Kojima or somebody at Konami, I don't know whose idea it was, but somebody says, hey, you know what? This game needs a little bit more budget. We need a little more moolah. What can we do? New consoles just released. No good games are out. I've got it. We're going to release the prologue separately. Now people are going to get a taste of what the new game is going to be like. We're going to bring in some extra dough so that this game can continue its development further, meaning that this game would have been even more unfinished without Ground Zeroes. I guarantee this game would have been very unfinished if Ground Zeroes hadn't been released to help kind of boost this project along. So now we have a reason for Ground Zeroes. Now it brings us all the way back around to my initial question. Why wouldn't they just cut that extra content? The game is well complete enough. I mean, the FOBs, sure, there's some balance issues there. Big surprise. Have you ever played an online multiplayer game in your entire life? Then okay, you understand that balance issues are something that come with most games. But it's just an extra little side thing. I mean, the single-player game alone is enough to make this game stand on its two legs. Then you have MGO, another great aspect of the game. The game has so much content that if they were to cut all the content that everybody has been so controversial about, this whole situation wouldn't even happen. Nobody would be complaining about cut content. So here's my take on it. Kojima makes a game titled The Phantom Pain. And I know probably a lot of you out here are already expecting this, and you're going to go, oh, this answer. Well, let's just face it. Let's face the truth, okay? He's making a game called The Phantom Pain. It was very obvious to me that throughout the trailers, the game, that the true ending, the twist, the whole big twist, it was you could totally see it coming. I did my best to just try not to think about it because I wanted to be surprised at the end of the game. But, you know, throughout playing, I'm like, this doesn't seem right. Something's not adding up. Even in the trailers, there were things that like, why did they say it like that? I don't understand. So they were obviously planning this whole twist. I think it was an amazing twist because it lines up a game that most of you probably don't care about, Metal Gear 1. But to me, that was my first Metal Gear game I had ever played. It was the crappy NES port, but I've played the MSX port since. I think it's a super great game, and I've always felt like the Metal Gear 1 and 2 just didn't really belong in the Metal Gear Solid universe. I felt like they were just too far removed, even though they shouldn't be. Because when you play Metal Gear Solid 1, there are so many ties back to those original games. So I feel like this ending does indeed bring that first game in, and now it makes it feel so much more real. It's like, all sorts of people are talking about how they would love to see a remake of the original Metal Gear game in the Fox engine. Why? Because of this game. Without this story plot, nobody would give two flying fricks, except people like me, a very small minority, would care at all about the original Metal Gear game. So they've managed to add a whole nother story element to a game that's been running for almost 30 years and already had its story complete. So that alone, in my opinion, is a pretty large feat. But Kojima seemed to take it a little bit further than just the gameplay and story. And this is where the whole unfinished content piece comes in. The Phantom Pain. What does it mean? A Phantom Pain is something that you feel is there, but it's not really there. So when they're talking about lost limbs, someone with a lost limb will often claim, like, I feel like my hand is there, but there's nothing there. There's no hand there. And that's what a phantom pain is. So when we play this game and we see the unfinished cut content that they showed us, they wanted us to know. They wanted us to know, hey, look, this game wasn't done. I mean, it was intentional. This wasn't like a, let's try to sneak it by, unfinished. Like, how many games have we played in the past where it's like, this is an unfinished piece of crap that they made it sound like this is a complete game? It's not. I mean, look at Titanfall. Titanfall came across as a complete full game, and everyone just thought, this isn't complete. There's nothing here. There's barely any content. These are games that people expected to feel like full games. Not like, oh, here's a few modes to play around with that you can just do over and over for hours on end. Basically, what I'm getting at here, Kojima had this stuff put in. He gets put up with time constraints, and Konami says, all right, that's it. The game's releasing on this day. Okay, do what you have to do. Wrap it up in a bow. I don't care. Get the game packaged and get it sent out because it is releasing on September 1st, whether you like it or not, buddy. So now Kojima is probably thinking, okay, well, let's see. What content should we cut? Why would I cut any content? This game is called The Phantom Pain. It's about the protagonist, you, by the way. Okay, there's the big spoiler alert. Kojima said, one of the big flags to me was, Kojima said, I want this game, I want the player to feel like they are Snake. I want them to feel like this is their Snake, not like they're playing the role of someone else. He wanted you to feel like this was your Snake. This was your character. Okay? So the Phantom Pain is now not just related to Big Boss. It's actually, or Kaz, or any of those guys. It's related to you specifically. The Phantom Pain is about you, the player, the consumer. So now, how do you make a Phantom Pain feel any more real by then giving players something that isn't really there? But now we know that episode 51 was in the works. We know that Eli and Psycho Mantis were in the works for some planning, okay? We know that the Battle Gear was supposed to be something, and it's all gone. It's our own Phantom Pain, and I know that's a running joke on the internet right now, but it's serious, and it's a really, really ingenious thought. Because any other creator out there would have just said, okay, let's cut the game's content down to make it feel complete. And we would have got the game, we would have loved it. Okay, you can deny it all you want, and it's easy to say, no, I think it would have felt unfinished anyways. But the truth is you played an unfinished game. You feel the Phantom Pain. You can't take that back. It's there now. It's officially there. So you can say whatever you want about hypotheticals and what would have happened, but all we have in reality is what happened. And the truth is Kojima managed to make, in my opinion, the best game of all time. And that's coming from someone who really loves stealth action games. So I'm not saying that it's going to be everybody's favorite game ever. But they managed to make a game with incredibly open-ended, fun gameplay, with story content that that's had people talking and conversing and arguing and, you know, going on about, which a lot of game stories don't do that. There's games out there that do it, but the majority of the time it's like beginning, end. There's the story. Let's make up some crap to talk about. And that's what most gamers end up having to do, is create fan fury, you know, fiction about games, because the story's opened and closed. And in this game, it's not so much. You can easily go one way or the other. Some people are like, Huey, death to Huey. And other people are like, I don't know, like, what? All the odds stack against him. But did he really do it, or was Huey really just a representation of Kojima this entire time? And really, was he being blamed for things that he didn't do? I mean, think about it. He puts on Kojima's glasses on his boat ride out. He's being sent off, exiled, not put to death, not put in jail. He's being exiled, just like Kojima is being removed, exiled from his home territory at Konami, from Kojima Studios. He is being removed from it. And we don't know why. But it certainly feels a lot like Huey's situation, where it's like, we're just going to erase you from the situation, and these are the reasons. And he has nothing else he can say or do about it. You know, we don't know what the real story is between Kojima and Konami, but to me, that seems like a valid point. Maybe Huey wasn't in the wrong the whole time. Maybe. It just looks like that. Because think about the end, one of the end subtitles say, the truth is just an interpretation. So it's easy for us to blame Huey, that he's the bad guy in all this, because of the way we interpret what the information we received. We could be missing information. It's just like the cassette tape that's used to judge him at the end. You only hear the first part about it, but then when you go back and listen to the entire cassette tape, you're like, oh, no, she wasn't really blaming him the way that it made it sound. It's very different listening to the whole cassette tape. So basically, just to come back to all this, I think that this was one of the most ingenious twists and made, like, the most ingenious way to make use of a game title ever. Like, they took a game title that was about a character's phantom pain and then created a phantom pain in its own player base. Does that sound cruel? Yeah, sure. Does that sound like something Metal Gear's done before? Yeah, sure. I still remember playing Metal Gear Solid 2 on the tanker level, being so excited about playing as Solid Snake. And the mechanics, they were so much sharper. You could hold guys up. I mean, it was like Metal Gear Solid 2.0. It felt like the next game. It was going to be so amazing. I had my money out. I was ready. If pre-orders were a big thing back then, I would have pre-ordered the game. Game comes out, you play through the tanker level, you're like, yes, game is so cool. This is gonna be awesome. I've been waiting for a game like this ever since Metal Gear Solid, which was one of my favorite games as a kid. And now, all of a sudden, you're this dude who looks like a girl, who sounds like a girl. And Raiden was not the cool ninja guy that he is in Metal Gear Solid 4 or Metal Gear Rising. He sounded like a woman, okay? Now, there's nothing wrong with playing as a woman. It has nothing to do with that. The point is you have this, you know, masculine, secret agent, super legendary soldier called Solid Snake, and then all of a sudden, you get past the part of the demo and you're not him anymore? You're a guy that looks like a girl. You're not even just a girl. I mean, if you were a girl, I think I would have been more susceptible to it. Like, oh yeah, you know, it's a girl. It's like Girl Snake. You know, that would have almost been okay with me. But I was playing Metal Gear Solid 2 the other day, and my wife walked in and said, why are you playing as a girl now? Oh, it's not a girl. This is Raiden. You know, I have to explain to her that it's a guy. And it's just, it was such a blow to the nuts. And I know a lot of younger kids don't understand that because they weren't around. They didn't feel that blow to the gut. But here's the truth, though. We look back at Metal Gear Solid 2 and for the most part, a lot of people still look at it as a really great game. Some people say it's one of the most ingenious story plots out there. In my opinion, it doesn't beat giving someone a real phantom pain, though, because that's what it is. And every single person out there that's complaining about the cut content, the unfinished story, the lackluster story, whatever they want to call it, they were the victims here of that phantom pain. They were basically exactly what Kojima was trying to do, and why not? I mean, Kojima's leaving Konami. It doesn't matter. He was able to accomplish something, not to make people happy, not to make game sales, but to do something that nobody else has ever done in the video game industry. And that is why I say this is one of the most ingenious story plots out there, because it has done way more than just blow your mind like, whoa, I don't understand. Like BioShock Infinite, they're like, okay, most complicated ending ever, let people figure it out. Okay, you know, that was kind of cool. It was cool for its time, but you didn't feel like any sort of like personal emotional attachment to it like this. Like, people feel offended that they're missing something that they feel like should be more. And why are people so offended? Why do they care so much about getting more content out of a game they've already got 150 hours out of? Because the game is freaking amazing. That's why. The game is amazing. People loved it. They loved every minute of it. They wanted more. They wanted more, more, more. And then all of a sudden you get to a point where it looks like you're going to get more. I mean, I remember when I finished chapter 30, I was like, oh, that's the game. It's over. Okay. Because I didn't look at any spoilers. I didn't spoil anything about this game. And I'm thinking, okay, I guess that's the end of the game. And I remember talking to someone, I was like, oh yeah, I think I just finished Metal Gear. I didn't think it was going to end, but it was really good. I really liked it. And then all of a sudden, you know, the credits roll out, but then they had that chapter 2 trailer as well that made me think, what is this about? Is there a whole bunch more gameplay to this? Why did they put that trailer in? That trailer, I feel like, has more than chapter 2 actually has in it. Like, so they intentionally set me up to feel like there's more. They finished the game. They gave you a complete story, a really cool story that wraps up Skullface. It wraps up Philanthropist. You know, it's kind of about Big Boss rebuilding Mother Base after it being destroyed. It maybe wasn't what people expected initially because, you know, a lot of people thought, oh, this is where he's going to become evil. Well, it can be. I mean, you can run around and kill people and get a giant horn out of your head and full of blood. But that's not really the point of the story here at all. It had nothing to do with good or evil. That's purely player choice. Are you a good player? Are you an evil player? You know, you make that choice. So I think I'm just going to leave it on this. Just really stop and think. Okay, just stop and think about how you were intentionally set up to feel something called the Phantom Pain by a game called the Phantom Pain. Okay, and just think about that. Think of any other game that has done that to you. These may not be positive feelings, okay? They may not be positive feelings, but they're wrapped into a game that you had a lot of positive feelings about. A game that you were like, man, I really like this game, but I want more. Well, of course you wanted more. I want more. I mean, honestly, I paid $15 a month to get some content patches for this game. I loved it. I thought it was amazing, and I wish there was more of it, but it's not going to stop me from denying how ingenious this whole thing was, because we all got played like a damn fiddle. Okay, that's basically, that wraps up everything here. That's my opinion about it. I think that all this hate on Metal Gear Solid 5 is going to turn around a few years later, and people are going to look back and say that was one of the most fucking amazing, ingenious things I have ever seen in video game history. A creator totally just played all of his players like seriously hardcore, all for the sake of the story and the game's title. And he did it all, he basically did it all from a bad situation. Because I don't believe for a moment that his initial thoughts were, I'm going to make the player feel like this is a phantom pain. I'm going to totally just unfinish things. No, I don't buy that. I think that he couldn't finish the game because it was taking years to make. It was costing tons of money. The game was already too big, and he needed to either cut content or use that cut content to do something that really hasn't been done before. Intentionally, at least. So, I hope you guys enjoyed the videos. I would love to hear what you guys think about it. I know there's going to be lots of people that disagree with me, and that's just fine. That's part of the reason why I think this is such a fantastic storyline, is because of the controversy and the arguments and the discussions that have come up. So I'd love to hear what you guys' thoughts on it are. You know, leave a comment and let me know, and I'll do my best to reply to them. Until next time, guys, and keep enjoying Metal Gear if you're playing it out there. If you haven't picked it up and you just listened to all this, I hope I didn't spoil too much of the game already, but it is one of the most fantastic games. It's my favorite game of all time. I just really love it. If you're having trouble having fun with it, I would just advise shaking it up. This isn't a game that you have to play by, you know, any certain of standards of rules. You can play it however you want. You want to blow up the whole base with C4, blow it all up with C4. You want to not use anything but a water pistol to take out a base, do it. Until next time, guys, enjoy.